Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. In our previous video, linked down below, we answered the question of what types of ships carried nuclear weapons. And I hope that everybody else was as surprised as I am that it wasn't just big ships like battleships, aircraft carriers, and ballistic missile submarines, but practically every warship and half of the auxiliaries in the Navy were capable of carrying them. So that brings up the two questions of why did the Navy say that they wouldn't confirm that they carried them, and why did they eventually remove them all? So, nuclear weapons are supposed to be a deterrent. Because we're armed with nuclear weapons, you don't want to mess with us or we will use nuclear weapons. So, wouldn't it be more effective to tell everybody that your ship is carrying nuclear weapons, whether it is or isn't? Yes, but that causes other political issues. U.S. Navy warships stop in a number of Allied ports, countries around the world, many of which would rather not have nuclear warheads in their country. Several have actual laws on the books that say that you cannot bring nuclear weapons to that country. So it seems like part of the U.S. Navy's thinking, and they will neither confirm nor deny that there are any on this ship, is that they can just tell allies like New Zealand, Denmark, or Japan that, yeah, we won't confirm that there are any nuclear weapons on that ship. It's perfectly safe to go into your port. But then they can turn around and tell the Soviet Union that, hey, we won't confirm that there aren't nuclear weapons on that ship. You really shouldn't mess with us. So it is the U.S. Navy's way of having their cake and eating it too. These ships can still act as deterrents and be sent to hot spots around the world as needed, because they might be carrying nuclear warheads. But we can also send them to friendly countries and say that, no, there's no confirmed nuclear weapons on that ship. It's perfectly safe to come into your port. So why, very rapidly in the early 90s, does the Navy remove all these warheads unilaterally without even a treaty with the Soviet Union or Russia or anybody else, China, about doing this? Well, there's two main reasons for that. One is the end of the Cold War. When the Soviet Union breaks up in 1991, the United States no longer needs tactical deterrents like nuclear warheads on all of their ships. Neither Russia nor any of the other countries that break away from the Soviet Union are able to deploy the massive numbers of tactical nuclear weapons that the United States and Soviet Union were deploying during the Cold War. And so there's no longer a need or a reason to justify the expense. It's certainly not free to put one of these really dangerous warhead types on a ship. You need to pay people specifically how to maintain them, and the training associated with that, and the specific equipment for being able to launch these, because it's a slightly different system with more interlocks than using a regular weapon. Disposal of them is far more difficult. On several occasions, these warheads are lost or damaged in some way in accidents that happen with ships or collisions, and that requires a recovery effort. And the other reason, possibly the more important of the two reasons, is more and more of our allies at that time stopped letting the U.S. Navy have their cake and eat it too. More and more of them stopped allowing the line of we won't confirm that we have nuclear weapons to be good enough. Essentially, the people of those countries charged their governments with enforcing the laws that were already on the book to prevent nuclear-armed ships from coming into these ports. And we see during the late 80s and the early 90s a tremendous amount of protesting going on whenever U.S. Navy warships go to ports. It happens very frequently with the battleships in the 1980s and with other types of ships. Another reason was the type of wars that the United States was getting into. We were no longer involved in a Cold War standoff, but consistently throughout the 80s and early 90s, we got involved in small actions in Panama, Grenada, Lebanon, the Persian Gulf, several times, Somalia, the Balkans, and none of these were appropriate battlefields for nuclear weapons. And those nuclear weapons are taking up space that could be used by conventional weapons. I have heard from a former sailor on Wisconsin that they pulled into port, I believe it was in Norfolk, before deploying to the Persian Gulf, and they removed several Tomahawk cruise missiles from the ship and traded them with the ship that was right next to them with more land attack Tomahawk missiles. Because in the Gulf War, they needed land attack missiles. They didn't need the sea attack version or the nuclear version. So for conventional wars, you need conventional warheads. You don't need all the space that's being taken up by these tactical nuclear weapons, especially when you have a really effective strategic deterrent in your guided missile ballistic submarines. So which reason do you think was most important for the United States removing nuclear weapons from their ships? Let us know in the comment section down below. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below for ways you can support the channel. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about us in the museum. Thanks for watching.
When was the last time you walked beneath a nearly 900-foot battleship without getting wet? Or stood next to an Iowa-class propeller 3 times taller than you? This spring, you can book a tour beneath the Battleship New Jersey, the largest, most decorated battleship in U.S. history, while she's in dry dock at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Tens of thousands of gallons of water will be drained from the docks so you can see the hidden workings of one of our nation's all-time greatest military assets. Battleship New Jersey was first launched on December 7th, 1942. She epitomizes the awe-inspiring display of American naval power and the indomitable American spirit. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to support the work of the Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Visit battleshipnewjersey.org to book your tour today.